Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to take a very quick look at the game Takenoko, which also means bamboo sprout in Japanese. This game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up, with the average play time being about 45 minutes. In this game, the Japanese emperor has entrusted his courtesans, the players, with taking care of his bamboo garden and his giant panda. The players will be receiving victory points based on how well they can do this. Let's just take a quick moment to look at the components and see how the game is played. Alright, now as far as the components go, keep in mind that these are just a sampling of the components. There's actually more in the box of each type. But over here on the left you have a player mat. Basically this just helps players keep track of what kind of actions they can take on their turn. And likewise, each player will be able to place these action markers or tokens onto the various actions on this mat, just again so they can keep track of what they've done during that particular turn. You've also got a weather die here. Players will be rolling this at the beginning of every turn except for the very first round, just so that they can perform some type of special ability. You've got some irrigation channels here. These help to irrigate the various plots of land, which you can see over here are hexagonal in shape. You've got a number of these bamboo pieces. One is a base meant to go on the very bottom, while the others just simply fit right over top of each other. You've also got these improvement tiles over here. Players will be able to upgrade various plots of land with these improvements. You've got a gardener and a panda figurine. These will be moving around the board, which again, the board is made up of these hexagonal tiles to perform various functions. And finally, you have these objective cards over here on the right hand side. There are 3 different types of objective cards. There's the gardener objective card, there's the plot objective card, and there's the panda objective card. Players will be able to complete any of these 3 objective cards throughout the game in order to score points. As far as game setup goes, the first thing you want to do is find the pond tile, which is among all of the different plot tiles over here, and place it into the center of the table. You'll put the gardener figurine and the panda figurine right on top of it, and you'll place irrigation channels along the perimeter of said tile. Each player receives a player mat and one of each objective card type. Each player will also receive a total of 2 action tokens. The game is played over a series of turns, with one player taking a turn, then another player taking a turn, and so on and so forth until a game-ending condition has been met. And that is when a particular player has managed to play or satisfy so many objective cards. That number will change depending on how many people are playing the game. A player's turn is broken up into 2 phases. The first phase of a player's turn involves the rolling of the weather die. However, this will not occur during the first round of the game. Now, I'm not going to go into every ability here, but suffice it to say that these different symbols allow the player to perform specific actions depending on what is rolled. The sun symbol, for example, allows the player to take an extra action on the second phase of their turn. There's a question mark here, which allows a player to pick any action that they want to, and so on and so forth. And once they've rolled something, they'll go ahead and just simply place that right onto their player mat, and then take that action if appropriate. The second phase of a player's turn allows the player to take 2 of 5 different actions and satisfy any objective cards if they can. It's important to note that the 2 actions that the player takes has to be different from one another unless the weather die says otherwise. The first action a player could take on their turn is the drawing of plot tiles. The player will draw 3 plot tiles from the available stack, look at them, choose one, and put the rest back. Now, they'll have to place this immediately, and there's a few placement rules to consider. They can't place it so that it only borders one other tile like this. The exception to that rule is the pond tile. You can place that like so. Now, whenever you do place it, and again, it has to touch at least 2, in this case this would be legal. If you place a tile and it is irrigated, meaning that it borders one of these irrigation channels, it will grow a piece of bamboo automatically. In this case, there is no irrigation channel bordering this particular tile. This one here does not count. It has to be actually touching the face, touching one of the faces of the hexagonal tile. In this case, the placement is legal, however, it will not grow bamboo. The second action that a player could potentially take on their turn is the irrigation action, and all that entails is taking one of the blue sticks out of the bag or irrigation channels and placing it either on the board or holding on to it for a future turn. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and place it here. And it's important to note that when a tile is irrigated for the very first time, you can place a piece of bonus bamboo right on top of it. Just as a quick side note, and I probably should have mentioned this during game setup, but normally you would not put these irrigation channels around the pond tile at the beginning of the game. However, I find that this serves as a nice visual cue, because you have to consider legal channel placement throughout the game. In order to place a channel, it has to be built off of the pond tile like so. You just can't place these irrigation channels randomly around the board throughout the game. So it's up to you. I mean, you can take these irrigation channels off of the pond tile at the beginning of the game, or you can leave them on just in case you want to remind players where the base is and where you can build off of. The third action that a player could potentially take on their turn is to move the gardener. And to do so, the player would pick up the gardener piece and move him in a straight line to the location of his choice. He could stop here, for example, or stop here. And what will happen is that gardener will go ahead and grow one piece of bamboo at that location, assuming that the tile is irrigated, in which case it is. So you would just simply take one of these and slide it right over top. And it's also important to note that these only grow 4 pieces high. Now the bonus effect is that the gardener will also grow one piece of bamboo to all tiles that are adjacent of the same color. Because obviously pink and yellow aren't the same color, none of these would grow any bonus bamboo. But this one is of the same color and it is irrigated. So this tile would also receive a piece of bamboo. The fourth action that a player can take on their turn is to move the panda. Now whenever the panda is moved, it is moved just like the gardener in a straight line to the location of their choice. Let's say that the player wanted to move the panda here. The panda will eat one bamboo at that location. You just simply take the top one off of that bamboo stick there and place it onto your player mat. The fifth and final action that a player could take on their turn is just to simply draw one objective card from the 3 available stacks. As players perform these actions, they'll just simply place their action tokens onto the appropriate spaces on their player mat. Now I mentioned earlier that a player could also satisfy objectives during their turn, and to do that they'll take a look at their objective cards in their hand and play them face up onto the table whenever they've satisfied an objective. Let's just take a quick look at some of these. You've got a plot objective card here that wants the player to have 3 hexes in a pattern like this. If the player can manage to draw a yellow tile, plot tile from the stack and place it like so, that would satisfy this objective and they would earn 3 points for doing that. This one will be a little bit harder to satisfy because there are no green tiles on the board yet. You've also got this one here. This is worth 6 points. This is a gardener objective card. The gardener wants a plot of land to have 4 bamboo pieces high with no improvements on said tile. Now, this one would be ideal, but there's an improvement tile on it, so that would not be valid. The player would have to try and build off of this one or another one, whatever the case may be. You've also got these panda objective cards. It's basically just tasking you with eating so much bamboo. As the panda eats bamboo, you'll be placing those pieces onto your player mat, and you could just simply trade those pieces in by giving them back to the quote-unquote bank, and then just playing this objective card face up. Again, once a player has satisfied so many objectives, the final round will begin, and then scoring will occur. Now, when a player does manage to satisfy the appropriate number of objectives, they'll go ahead and take the Emperor card, which is worth 2 points. During this point in the game, every other player will take one final turn, and at the end of that, players will compare scores by adding up the number of points on their played objective cards. Whoever has the most will win the game. And there you have it. That's just a very brief look at the game Takenoko. I didn't get to cover all of the rules found in the manual, but this should just give you a general overview as far as how the game is played. You can check out my review at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, or you can simply click on the link in the below description that'll take you there as well. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.